YouTube? Talking today a little bit about signals intelligence and in particular targeting VHF and UHF signals so that you can exploit everybody's favorite radio, and DMR too. So everybody thinking that encryption is the way that nobody can ever detect me. Yeah, maybe not so much. We're gonna find out. Let's talk about it. Roll that intro. Let's talk signals intelligence because that is a perennial topic that a lot of, let's be nice and say dubious information gets spread around online. There are some realities of tactical signals exploitation, or TSE, that are shared in the Guerilla's Guide to Signals Intelligence. You can find this on Amazon.com as well as Brushbeater.store. And I wrote that book literally for the 11 Bravo grunts in the room to be able to follow, really as a guidebook. So, utilizing common off-the-shelf equipment and, of course, techniques that are involved in it. One of the reasons that you really need to be concerned about signals intelligence, whether you are just looking to create communications in the event of a natural disaster, like, kind of the example we keep going back to is Hurricane Helene, but any sort of natural disaster, man-made disaster, and then, of course, whatever tactical scenario you envision, as well as clandestine communications, which are really mutually exclusive topics, all contained, described in detail, both in the Guerilla's Guide to Baofengs Radio, as well as Guerilla's Guide to Signals Intelligence. ComSec, or communication security, is a topic that remains of critical importance no matter what role you find yourself in. You kind of have to have that mantra that somebody is always listening, and the thing is that there are a number of ways that your communications and the patterns of life that are created by that can be exploited. Not really trying to scare anybody there, but I'm just saying that there is plenty of people out there that simply with something like a unit in Bearcat scanner, a Baofengs set to scan license-free frequencies, which is certainly one thing that you can do. We talked about that in a previous video. Or stepping up in a level of sophistication, going with the Tiny S8 Ultra, Malahite DSP2, and any of the more advanced tools that we offer in the store. There's just a number of things that avenues essentially that you can approach with that. Why do you need to be concerned about that? Because people collect information on you a variety of different ways. If you followed any of the InfoSec people that are out there, shout out to Michael Bazell, Naomi Brockwell being another one. They kind of talk about that from the internet perspective and creating ComSec, communication security, like keeping yourself secure. Well, the thing is that, if I'm operating with an analog only radio, and there are ways to digitize this that I cover in the book. But if, I'm just blasting out my conversation, kind of what we call in the clear, there's a lot of stuff that can be gleaned from that. There's a lot of pieces of data that I can pull from that. Call signs, voices, deportment, meaning, the description, kind of what their mood is. People are agitated, they'll normally talk faster. There's just a number of things that I can do with that. Kind of looking at it from a more advanced standpoint, People say, well, for tactical communications solutions that are common off the shelf, they're going to start looking at some of the digital options like digital mobile radio or DMR, which is a protocol that encompasses a lot of different devices out there. P25 surplus radios, you find those a lot. I'm not big on those for a lot of reasons. We should probably do a separate video on that. There's a reason equipment gets surplus, and I can tell you from both of our personal experience that public sector equipment gets beaten like a rented mule.
Yep.
So if it's on the surplus market, it's
been through it.
Yeah, it's been rode hard, put up with. But that being said, anything that transmits can be direction found. Anything that transmits can be intercepted, and even if I am not, let's say, for example, several of the DMR models that are common off the shelf out there feature some degree of encryption, right? Could be, like the Anytone 878s, for example, or the Baofeng Tech 6X2, which we feature in the store. Those are, they have AES 256 capability in them. The Abri DMF8s that we carry in the store go up to AES 128, which is still reasonably secure for most things. It's not the highest degree of security, but it's still pretty good. Let's say you have all of that put in there, and I'm not able to decode what you're saying. That's only part of the equation, okay? And one of the things that trigger pullers will typically get hung up on is, well, I'm encrypted, so there's a level of ComSec there, and you can't break what I'm saying, so I have communication security. Well, that's partly true. However, I don't necessarily need to know what you're saying in order to know you're saying it.
Or where you're saying it from.
Exactly. There's a number of other things I can do. So, the Tiny SA Ultra here, which is a very cost-effective spectrum analyzer. There's a lot of good spectrum analyzers that are on the market that are high-end, and they go way higher in price. But this one coming in around $200 is really a rock star and a game changer. And they made a lot of great use of this in Ukraine in particular for ground signals intelligence use, as well, and targeting frequencies we're talking about, as well as drone detection. All right, so if I'm able to detect a digital signal, and I'm going to know because there's going to be a difference on the waterfall. If it's an analog signal, and I'm talking no audio output here, if it's an analog signal, it's going to be between 12.5 kilohertz wide and 25 kilohertz wide, and I'm going to be able to see that. Right, so you're going to see that in here, both with the spike, the width of the spike, as well as the waterfall. So a digital signal is usually going to be 6.25 kilohertz wide, so it's quite a bit narrower, and it's going to be a dedicated stream. Because the way digital stuff works is it's taking your voice pattern or SMS messages, turning it into a data stream. So you're going to be able to see that. A software suite that I strongly recommend you download is called Artemis. You can download Artemis from sigidwiki.com. So SigID Wiki, it'll be down in the show notes down below. Definitely want to get that, and hey, support their work. I'm, full disclosure, I am not affiliated in any way, shape, or form with them, but they do some incredible work. What Artemis does is it takes their entire database in their website of literally all the digital signals that are out there, and you can catalog them off grid by the frequency. So let's say I'm running my Tiny SA in the field, and I detect something on the VHF band. Right? It looks strange on the waterfall. I don't necessarily know what it is. I can get that frequency off of here and then enter it into that software, and it's going to pull up some possibles of what that is, right? And so that can point me in the right direction. Configuring the Tiny SA, kind of what I like doing, This is one that's the shelf model here in the showroom. It's got an omnidirectional antenna on it. The way that I configure this for use, obviously, it's in the vigilante engineering case here, which really, our friend Adam over at Vigilante Engineering really knocks this thing out of the park. Got a plexiglass screen on it for protecting this thing, ruggedizing it in the field. But essentially, I'm going to set my start frequency for 136 megahertz and the stop frequency for 174 if I'm monitoring VHF. Why am I going to do that? Because that is the operating range of this radio. So if I know, let's say, for example, I know that the people I'm targeting are operating handheld VHF radios, as they were frequently in Afghanistan. That's what they were rocking. All right. So I know a few pieces of data about my adversary. That's where I'm going to start. And I'm going to begin with an omnidirectional antenna like this to be able to receive all the things in that given frequency range. So if you key up on VHF, bam, I got you. Right? Going to be able to see it as long as I'm within reception range of you.
One of the great things about the Tanning SA is I believe it has by default 10 presets.
Yep.
So you can have a dual band, you can have one reading VH and UHF. It segments it, waterfalls it, categorizes it. And then if you want to swap over to have a dedicated, say, like people, we love the Mesh-tastic network and the mesh devices, which all operate on, a very set frequency. You could just go in the presets, hit two buttons, and all of a sudden you have essentially a bug scanner or a mesh scanner, which is directional as well.
Right. It's, the thing is that the spectrum analyzer technology once upon a time was very cost prohibitive to field in large numbers, right? Nowadays that is absolutely not the case, and we are finding them being utilized on the battlefield in Ukraine. I suspect very soon we're going to be seeing them in the unfolding Pakistan and India conflict. We're seeing them in Burma as well. And the thing is that drones are now being equipped with a type of spectrum analyzer that's preloaded with targets in them. So a lot of times, people love to give you flack when I talk about, the mesh network stuff. Like, look, if you're a civilian just doing whatever, okay. I'm rolling my eyes very hard because, you're going to fight like you train. Fine, whatever. But if I am on either a symmetrical battlefield or even worse, asymmetric battlefield, and I need absolute control of the emissions that I'm putting out, whether that is in a guerrilla base, that's in a patrol base, that's that forward area, I need to be able to control all of that. And what I have found over the years is that people who jump on those types of solutions typically are lazy, don't understand what their products are actually doing, don't understand the concept of emissions control. And when you're training in those paradigms, I mean, it's bad training technique going in, bad training technique going out. And there's a lot of code that people have. Oh, but I'm using this just to play around with. Okay, well, that's fine. I don't. I don't play around with things that might potentially get me killed because of bad habits. That's just, kind of my 2 cents on the topic. But that being said, Tiny SA Ultra, you can run it in multiple modes on the display at once. That can get a little clunky, so what I personally do is I'm going to have 2 of these set up. I'll have one, again, for 136 through 174, and another one for 400 through 512, because people might be operating on UHF. And again, that's going to cover everything from public safety frequencies as well. So, people who love to get them surplus public safety radios. And, oh, it's encrypted, I'm good. Yeah, see, that's the problem. They're only designed to operate on a very narrow set frequencies. So, but anyway, it leads to rapid targeting. And when people are over reliant on their radio chatter and they're talking way too much and they're sending way too much traffic over the net, that's how it ends up shaking out. So definitely want to keep all that chatter to a minimum. One strong suggestion for practicing signals intelligence and getting out there, getting after it. One, this is a really cool thing to do, costs you absolutely nothing, and it's great tactical training, is to go out to a public space like a park or somewhere, and I have this exercise listed in the book. It's literally just communications mapping. Go out to, you can do this in a coffee shop somewhere, an urban area, you can do it in rural areas. Just take a tiny essay, sit outside, sip some coffee or, beverage of your choice, and sit there and see what kind of spikes you're getting and keep a log of it. And then cross-reference that data. Of course, write it all down. Cross-reference that data onto Artemis if you want to do it off-grid. Look at it on SIG Wiki, radioreference.com is another great one, and see what you get. And then see what you can do with that data. All right, a lot of interesting stuff out there. Anyway, if you want to find out more, I have a signals intelligence course coming up this summer in July. Going to be hot and humid out in sunny Arkansas. It's going to be nice and hot out there at Darcy. So we're going to be out there. I have one coming up here next week, or the end of next week, out in Montana. I know that's short fuse for a lot of people. That class is just about full already. And of course, we've got one here in North Carolina later on in the year as well. If you want to check out those details and a heck of a lot more, pick up the book, Gorilla's Guide to Signals Intelligence. Hit me up, Brushbeater store. And with that said, folks, get out there, train hard. Like, subscribe, comment down below. We'll talk to you soon. This is the Brushbeater team out.